I'm Tracy Pattin, and this is Sizzlecaster.com. Turn your passion into your personal brand. And I have a very special guest today, all the way from New York via Skype, Rudy Gaskins, who is executive director and founder of Push Creative. Hi, Rudy.
Hello. How are you, Tracy?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
So how's life in New York?
Well, today it's a bit rainy.
Oh, is it?
A bit rainy, a bit chilly.
Okay.
But that's all good. The earth needed the water. It's
Okay,
been very hot here for a few days, so.
Well, it's so great to have you here, and as you know, I'm all about this personal branding, and you're all about all kinds of branding, right?
Indeed.
So tell me about Push Creative and what you guys do.
Well, we are a branding agency. Push Creative is a branding agency, and what that means for us is that we develop the strategic thinking behind positioning brands, and then we deploy that thinking through marketing strategies, and that's the written language as well as the artwork, the graphics that go into commercials and billboards, magazine ads, online banners, the works.
What you do is corporate branding, but branding is branding, right? And now with the internet, and as you know, the huge expansion of the internet. Oops, sorry everybody, I'm moving. You've got a mark on here. There. Hey, it is a high-tech world. So anyway, how does that translate into personal branding, and what do we need to do, we entrepreneurs out there, we who have websites and YouTube channels, what do we need to do to build our brand?
Well, let's look at what branding is in a nutshell.
Okay.
So what branding is a set of associations in the mind of your target audience about what and who you are as a product or a person or a service. So it's a set of associations. It's a perception. Now there's the work we do to create that perception and sustain it and grow it positively over time is branding. So whether you're doing that for yourself or whether you're doing that for a corporation is pretty much the same. The big difference between a corporation and an individual, of course, is in a corporation, there are a lot more people who have to buy into what the brand is if it's going to be fully realized as a perception out there in the world.
So, Rudy, how important then is it? I mean, we know how important corporate branding is. I mean, everybody has to relate to Coca-Cola and get that, I can't even think about their taglines, but, understand what each brand, Nike, okay, just do it. I mean, we love that. We know what that means. We know that little mark on the side of the shoe. We know it means just move forward and do it. So as individuals, how important and what do we need to do to make ourselves stand out from all of those people in the global mall across the world in this virtual world that we have now?
It's a good question. It's somewhat complicated because in part, what you have to do to brand yourself as an individual or anything is work with people who specialize in branding. And it's not just coming up with a great logo and a tagline that's interesting to you or that seems clever to you, throwing it out there and expecting people to respond to it. Just do it, with Nike, for example, is the result of millions of dollars of strategic thinking and planning and researching and exploration before they finally came around to making the decision to spend upteen millions more to actually supplant that brand concept. So let's back up and look at an individual. You just can't wake up in the morning and say, hey, I'm going to change my name, come up with this cute little logo, and start sending it out to people, and then I'll be branded. Right. Branding is the perception people have of you, the set of associations that you can create and have those become a consistent perception about what you offer, about your value as an individual performing performing a certain set of skills, for example. So, so it's not so simple. My first suggestion is that people work with a brand specialist when they're ready to brand themselves.
Like you.
Like me.
Okay.
And not take it lightly. Not assume that
Okay.
the clever idea you came up with is going to sustain itself over time. That's pretty much.
And Rudy, this whole personal branding, and I do that myself, for myself, and help others do it in terms of doing web videos and audio, podcasts, and blogs. And there's this real focus on being real, on just being who you are. If you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, he's got Wine Library TV. He's an internet sensation. He built his brand. And he's over there in Queens. He's got a wine store, a big wine store in Queens. And he talks a lot about being real and how important that is to building your brand. So even if you're a writer with one book, or whatever you have, whatever your message is, if you have just a message you want to get out there about helping the world be a better place, it comes down to that notion of authenticity and being real. What do you say to that?
Well, I agree with that 100%, first off. The authenticity is essential because over time, certain truths are going to show themselves regardless of what information or advertising or marketing you might put out in front of yourself to establish a brand.
Okay.
And the last thing you want is for people who are beginning to trust you and beginning to understand what your value is to them and their needs, to realize that you're not what you say you are.
Yes.
That you can't really deliver on the promises that you have made to them.
Yes.
And they will walk away from you in a heartbeat. They won't even think about the reasons why. It just happens in a nanosecond. As quickly as one can change a channel on a television set is how quickly people will walk away from you if you break that bond of trust.
I love that. I love that we have to have that. We have to be authentic. I love that we have to be trustworthy. I mean, I think that just transcends into life in general. And if you have integrity, it's going to show up in your brand, right?
Totally. And if you don't have anything to hide, you're going to welcome authenticity as kind of a guiding force in what you're doing to brand yourself, because it makes things so much easier. That you're depending upon actual value that you can share with people, that you have a set of skills that you can really deliver upon. And that simplifies the process because you're not making up things that you then have to explain and re-explain at some point down the line as a sort of survival technique.
Right. And this having a sense of purpose, I mean, because there probably are a lot of people watching that you might be wondering, well, okay, I want to have a brand. I want to share my brand because really we are our brand. So it's really about taking it to the next step and sharing, like what we're doing right now. I mean, you're sharing your brand. You're sharing you. You are Push Creative, even though you do have a team.
That's right.
Right? And I look at you
Absolutely.
and I see this very cool guy with very cool glasses and very accessible. You're very accessible. And that's very appealing. I mean, I automatically, even though I do adore your wife, Joan Baker, she's fantastic, I automatically feel like I can trust you. It's a sense I have about you. You automatically show that authenticity. So
thank you for saying that. I appreciate that comes through and you pick up on that, absolutely. And but you're pointing to a very powerful and maybe the most powerful aspect of branding, and that comes down to whether you take some action, strategic or otherwise, to begin to create your brand or the perception you believe you want people to have of you. It takes place regardless. If you were to poll your community, for example, you would find that the people in your community have, I'm sorry, a little technical problem here.
You're coming through okay on this end.
Okay, great. So if you were to poll your community your sphere of influence,
Mm-hmm.
you would find that those people have a set of associations in mind about you. They have a perception of you. And this is whether you attempted to create that or not,
Okay.
in a formal way. So you're going to have a brand whether you work at creating it and nurturing it or not. So your brand has begun. The next step is, what are you doing to shape it, to ensure that it's the correct brand, to ensure that it includes new ideas and thoughts that you may have about what you want to do in the world. So it's there already. What you're doing with it is the next question.
And and we can, like you said, I love what you said about going out into the community, our sphere, and kind of do our own market research and find out what people see when they see us, or how they feel when they meet us, or when they spend time with us, right?
That's right. You can start with your immediate friends or family. You can do a separate branding test with just the children you know in your life.
Ah, children would be good because they are truth tellers.
Yeah. And you have to be careful about the kinds of questions you ask so that they're not so overly biased that you come back with, a bad sample.
Yes, yes. And another thing that came to mind, and I did put something up, by the way, on Facebook and on my Sizzlecaster site, quoting you, Rudy, with your interview with Don LaFontaine. Very great interview. I did take a paragraph quoting you and then sending people over to that interview, because one of the things to do for we solo branders is to look at other people who've been successful. And unfortunately, Don's no longer with us, but boy, what an example. He's the top voice talent. He was the top voice talent in the world.
That's right.
And so I think that's a great way for us to kind of get started.
Yes, look at other people's brands, especially the ones that, for one reason or another, really stand out to you and that you're impressed by, but also those that you feel are similar to you, especially if in terms of competition. Whatever you're doing in your life, if it's earning you your livelihood, if that's where your essential brand message is stemming from, the desire to create work, for example, work opportunities, then you want to look at the competition. And as you begin to explore your community, your sphere of influence, and start to mine that resource for information, it will likely start to shine a light on where your competition is.
Well, Rudy, this was fascinating, and unfortunately, YouTube, we got to limit our time here, but I definitely would love to interview you again, because we could go on and talk about this forever. But I think we've got a lot of great tips to get started, and for those of you that are really looking to go for it, you can check out pushcreative.tv. I'll have that on my site. And talk to Rudy about everything that you're doing over there. Your site, by the way, you have to just look at the site, everyone. Just look at what they did and how creative it is. I just love looking at it all the time. And that's what you want. You want people to keep coming back and saying, this is really, really cool. So I thank you so much, Rudy. And say hi to all the New Yorkers. Say hi to your wife, of course, Joan Baker.
I will.
And I will, we'll do this again.
Okay, thank you very much, Tracy.
Thanks, Rudy.